And now I am recording, and hello, and welcome back to another book. Man, another book. So, as I've told you, I'm going to be reading Looking for Alaska by John Green. John Green is a very popular author. So you may have heard of him. You most likely have heard of him. Yeah, I'm gonna be reading Looking for Alaska. Unfortunately, when I bought the book came with a book cover, but I guess somehow I threw it away for whatever reason. I don't know why I threw it away. Maybe it was damaged and I just didn't want it anymore. I'm not sure. So, I will just give you a picture of what the book currently looks like. Most likely is John Green's signature. But there's that. And then I'll give you a picture of the spine too, or not. Okay. And then there's my leg, and then the Looking for Alaska. It's a little blurred, but you can see John Green's name right there. Those are my shoes. That's my big, chunky leg. Okay. But yeah, that's what the book looks like. And unfortunately, there is no summary on the back. But I have scoured the internet for hours upon hours upon hours trying to find, the I guess synopsis of it. Well, it wasn't really hours. It took me 5 minutes before I started recording. But I will read it to you. So, all right. All right. So, it starts with before. Miles Pudge Halter is done with his safe life at home. His whole life has been one big non-event, and his obsession with famous last words has only made him crave the great perhaps even more. Francois Rabelais, poet. He heads off to some he heads off to the sometimes crazy and anything but boring world of Culver Creek boarding school, and his life becomes the opposite of safe, because down the hall is Alaska Young, the gorgeous, clever, funny, sexy, self-destructive, screwed up, and utterly fascinating Alaska Young. She is an event unto herself. She pulls Pudge into her world, launches him into the great perhaps, and steals his heart. Not before. After, nothing is ever the same. So that's like kind of making you wonder like what happens. But yeah, I've read this book and I wanted to read this book. I don't know, I think somewhere when I was reading 13 Reasons Why, I was just like, I know the perfect book after this. Okay. What is happening here? There we go. Oh, actually, hold on just 1 second. This pillow is all screwed up. I went to go lock my door, and now my pillowcase is not behaving. There we go. There we go. All right. Oh. All right. Just getting some setup. All right. I say all right a lot. Okay. No. AC adaptive learning cannot. Okay. Oh, I don't have it plugged in all the way. Oops. Sorry, computer. I hate it when I don't plug it in all the way. Then it just freaks out my laptop. Okay, though. Now we begin. So, yeah. Looking for Alaska. A novel by John Green. Alright, looking for Alaska. Before. Actually, let me see how much I want to read. Does this book have any... Oh, yeah, it does. It does have chapters, but it's not like it stops a chapter and then it starts on a whole new page. It just keeps going. Like, literally keeps going. Okay. So I just have to gauge how much I want to read tonight then. Okay. So yes, looking for Alaska. And this part is before. Because there's two parts, before and after. Okay, so before. 136 days before. The week before I left my family in Florida and the rest of my minor life to go to boarding school in Alabama, my mother insisted on throwing me a going away party. To say that I had low expectations would be to underestimate the matter dramatically. Although I was more or less forced to invite all my school friends, i.e. the ragtag bunch of drama people and English geeks I sat with by social necessity in the cavernous cafeteria of my public school. Let me put on my chapstick. Yeah, the ragtag bunch of drama people and English geeks I sat with by social necessity in the cavernous cafeteria of my public school. I knew they wouldn't come. Still, my mother persevered, awash in the delusion that I had kept my popularity secret from her all these years. She cooked a small mountain of artichoke dip. She festooned our living room with green and yellow steamers, the colors of my new school. She brought she bought 2 dozen champagne poppers and placed them around the edge of our coffee table. And when that final Friday came, when my packing was mostly done, she sat with my dad and me in the living room couch at 4:56 p.m. and patiently awaited the arrival of the goodbye and patiently awaited the arrival of the goodbye to Miles cavalry. Said cavalry, said cavalry, said cavalry um, consisted of exactly 2 people. Marie Lawson, a tiny blonde and a tiny blonde with rectangular glasses, and her chunky, to put it charitably, boyfriend, Will. Hey, Miles, Marie said as she sat down. Hey, I said. How was your summer? How was your summer? Will asked. Okay, yours? Good. We did Jesus Christ Superstar. I helped with the sets. Marie did the lights, said Will. That's cool. I nodded knowingly, and that about exhausted our conversational topics. I might have asked a question about Jesus Christ Superstar, except that one, I didn't know what it was, and 2, I didn't care to learn, and 3, I never really excelled at small talk. My mom, however, can talk for hours. Can can small can talk small for hours. And so she extended the awkwardness by asking them about their rehearsal schedule and how the show had gone and whether it was a success. I guess it was, Marie said. A lot of people came, I guess. Marie was the sort of person to guess a lot. Finally, Will said. Finally, Will said, Well, we just dropped by to say goodbye. I've got to get Marie home by 6. Have fun at boarding school, Miles. Thanks, I answered, relieved. The only thing worse than having a party that no one attends is having a party attended only by 2 vastly, deeply uninteresting people. They left, and so I sat with my parents and stared at the blank TV and wanted to turn it on, but I knew I shouldn't. I could feel them both looking at me, waiting for me to burst into tears or something, as if I hadn't known all along that it would go precisely like this. But I had known. I could feel their pity as they scooped artichoke dip with chips intended for my imaginary friends. But they needed pity more than I did. I wasn't disappointed. My expectations had been met. Is this why you want to leave, Miles? Mom asked. I nodded over for a moment, careful not to look at her. No, I said. Well, why then? She asked. This was not the first time she had posed the question. Mom was not particularly keen on letting me go to boarding school, and made no secret of it. Because of me? My dad asked. He had attended Culver Creek, the same boarding school to which I was headed, as had both of his brothers and all of their kids. I think he liked the idea of me following in his footsteps. My uncles had told me stories about how famous my dad had been on campus for having simultaneously raised hell and aced all his classes. That sounded like a better life than the one I had in Florida. But no, it wasn't because of Dad. Not exactly. Hold on, I said. I went into Dad's study and found his biography of Francois Rabelais. Rabelais? me see. Francois. Let me just say it. Francois Rabelais. Ah, yeah. I got it right. Thank you so much, Google. I went into Dad's study and found his biography of Francois Rabelais. I liked reading biographies of writers, even if, as was the case with Monsieur Rabelais, I'd never read any of their actual writing. I flipped to the back and found the highlighted quote: "Never use a highlighter in my books." My dad had told me 1,000 times. But how else are you supposed to find what you're looking for? "So this guy," I said, standing in the doorway of the living room. "Francois Rabelais. He was this poet, and his last words were, 'I go to seek a great perhaps.' That's why I'm going, so I don't have to wait until I die to start seeking a great perhaps." And that quieted them. And that quieted them. I was after a great perhaps, and they knew as well as I did that I wasn't going to find it with the likes of Will and Marie. I sat back down on the couch, between my mom and my dad. My dad put his arm around me, and we stared there like that, quiet on the couch together, for a long time, until it seemed okay to turn on the TV. And then we ate artichoke dip for dinner and watched the History Channel. And as going away parties go, it certainly could have been worse. 128 days before. Florida was plenty hot. Certainly, and humid too. Hot enough that your clothes stuck to you like Scotch tape. The sweat, hot enough that your clothes stuck to you like Scotch tape, and sweat dripped like tears from your foreheads into your eyes. But it was only hot outside, and generally, I only went outside to walk from one air-conditioned location to another. This did not prepare me for the unique sort of heat that one encounters 15 miles south of Birmingham, Alabama, at Culver Creek Preparatory School. My parents' SUV was parked in the grass just a few feet outside my dorm room. Room 43. What was the other? Oh, okay. Um, uh, uh, uh. Yeah, my parents' SUV was parked in the grass just a few feet outside my dorm room, room 43. But each time I took those few steps to and from the car to unload what now seemed like far too much stuff, the sun burned through my clothes and into my skin with a vicious ferocity that made me genuinely fear hellfire. Hold on just 1 second. Okay. Okay, yeah. Uh, Between mom and dad and me, it only took a few minutes to unload the car. But my unair-conditioned dorm room, although blessedly out of the sunshine, was only modestly cooler. The room surprised me. I pictured plush carpet, wooded paneled walls, uh, Victorian furniture, aside from one luxury, aside from aside from one luxury, a private bathroom. Yeah, aside from one luxury, a private a private bathroom. I got a box with cinder block cinder block walls coated thick with layers of white paint and a green and white checkered linoleum floor. The place looked le- the place looked more like a hospital than a dorm room of my fantasies. Yeah, the place looked more like a hospital than the dorm room of my fantasies. A bunk bed of unfinished wood with vinyl mattresses was pushed against the room's back window. The desks and dressers and bookshelves were all attached to the walls in order to prevent creative floor in order to prevent creative floor planning. And no air conditioning. God, that's so fucking annoying. Okay. Yeah, and no air conditioning. I sat on the lower bunk while Yeah, I sat on the lower bunk while Mom opened the trunk, grabbed a stack of the biographies my dad had agreed to part with, and placed them on the bookshelves. I can unpack, Mom, I said. My dad stood. He was ready to go. At least let me make your bed, Mom said. No, really, I can do it. It's easy. It's okay. Because you can because you can simply because you simply cannot draw these things out forever. At some point, you just pull off the band-aid and it hurts, but then it's over and you're relieved. God, we'll miss you, uh, Mom said suddenly, stepping through the minefield of suitcases to get to the bed. I stood and hugged her. My dad walked over too, and we formed a sort of huddle. It was too hot, and we were too sweaty for the hug to for the. It was too hot, and we were too sweaty for the hug to last terribly long. I knew I ought to cry, but I'd lived with my parents for 16 years, and a trial separation seemed overdue. Don't worry, I smiled. I's gonna learn how to talk like. I's gonna learn how to talk right Southern. Mom laughed. Don't do anything stupid, my dad said. Okay. No drugs, no drinking, no cigarettes. As an alumnus of as an alumnus of Culver Creek, he had done the things I had only heard about. The secret parties, streaking through hayfields. He always whined about how it was all boys back then. Drugs, drinking, and cigarettes. It had taken him a while to kick the smoking. Yeah, it had taken a while to kick smoking, but his badass days were now well behind him. I love you, they both blurted out simultaneously. It needed to be said, but the words made the whole thing horribly uncomfortable, like watching your grandparents kiss. I love you too. I'll call every Sunday. But did he ever stop the shrieking? Damn, man. I wonder. I don't think so. Well, I don't know. Hold on. Okay. Alright. I love you too. I'll call every Sunday. Our rooms had no phone lines, but my parents had requested I be placed in a room near one of Culver Creek's 5 payphones. They hugged me again, Mom and Dad, and it was over. Out the back window, I watched them drive the winding road off campus. I should have felt a gooey, sentimental sadness, perhaps. But mostly I just wanted to cool off, so I grabbed one of the desk chairs and sat down outside my door in the shade of the overhanging eaves, waiting for a breeze that never arrived. The air outside sat as still and oppressive as the air inside. I stared out over my new digs. Six one-story buildings, each with 16 dorm rooms, with six one-story buildings, each with 16 dorms, were arranged in a hexagon around around a large circle of grass. It looked like an oversized old motel. Everywhere, boys and girls hugged and smiled and walked together. I vaguely hoped that someone would come up and talk to me. I imagined the conversation. Hey, is this your first year? Yeah, I'm from Florida. That's cool. That's cool. So you're used to the heat? I wouldn't be used to this heat if I were from Hades. I joke. I'd make a good first impression. Oh, he's funny. That guy Miles is a riot. That didn't happen, of course. Things never happened like I imagined them. Bored, I went back inside, took off my shirt, lay down on the heat-soaked vinyl of the lower bunk mattress, and closed my eyes. I'd never been born again. I'd never been born again with the baptism and weeping and all that. But it couldn't feel much better. Yeah, but it couldn't feel much better than being born again as a guy with no known past. I thought of the people I'd read about. John F. Kennedy, James Joyce, Humphrey Bogart, who went to boarding school and their adventures. Kennedy, for example, loved pranks. I thought of the great perhaps and the things that might happen and the people I might meet and who my roommate might be. I had gotten a letter a few weeks before that gave me his name, Chip Martin, but no other information. Whoever Chip Martin was, I hope to God he would bring an arsenal of high-powered fans, because I hadn't packed even one, and I could already feel my sweat pooling on the vinyl mattress, which disgusted me so much that I stopped thinking and got off my ass to find a towel to wipe up the sweat with. And then I thought, before the adventure comes the unpacking. I managed to tape a map of the world to the wall and get most of my clothes into drawers before I noticed that the hot, moist air made even the walls sweat. So I decided that now was not the time for manual labor. Now was the time for a magnificently cold shower. The small bathroom contained a huge, full-length mirror behind the door, so I could not escape the reflection of my naked self as I leaned in to turn on the shower faucet. My skinniness always surprised me. My thin arms didn't seem to get much bigger as they moved from wrist to shoulder. My chest lacked any hint of either fat or muscle, and I felt embarrassed and wondered if something could be done about the mirror. I pulled open the plain white shower curtain and ducked into the stall. Unfortunately, the shower seemed to have been Unfortunately, the shower seemed to have been designed for someone approximately 3 feet 7 inches tall. So the cold water hit my lower rib cage with all the force of a dripping faucet. To my wet, sweaty soaked face, I had to spread my legs and squat significantly. Surely John F. Kennedy, he was 6 feet tall according to his biography, my height exactly, did not have to squat at his boarding school. No, this was a different beast entirely, and as dribbling water slowly soaked my body, I wondered whether I could find a grate perhaps here at all, or whether I had made a grand miscalculation. When I opened the bathroom door after my shower, a towel wrapped around my waist. Yeah, when I opened the bathroom door after my shower, a towel wrapped around my waist. I saw a short, muscular guy with a shock of brown hair. He was hauling a gigantic armor green duffel bag through the door of my room. He stood 5 feet and nothing, but was well built, like a scale model of Adonis. And with him arrived the stink of stale cigarette smoke. Great, I thought. I'm meeting my roommate naked. He heaved the duffel into the room, closed the door, and walked over to me. I'm Chip Martin, he announced in a deep voice, the voice of a radio DJ. Before I could respond, he added, I'd shake your hand, but I think you should hold on damn tight to that towel till you get some clothes on. I laughed and nodded my head at him. That's cool, right? The nod. And said, I'm Miles Halter. Nice to meet you. Miles, as in go to sleep before I sleep? He asked. Huh? It's a Robert Frost poem. You've never read him? I shook my head no. Consider yourself lucky, he smiled. I grabbed some clean underwear, a pair of blue Adidas soccer shorts, and a white t-shirt. Mumbled that I'd be back. Yeah, I grabbed some clean underwear, a pair of blue Adidas soccer shorts, and a white t-shirt. Mumbled that I'd be back in a second, and ducked back into the bathroom. So much for a good first impression. So where are your parents? I asked from the bathroom. My parents? The father is in California right now. Maybe sitting in his lazy boy. Maybe driving his truck. Either way, he's drinking. My mom is probably just now turning off campus. Oh, I said, just now. Not sure how to respond to such personal information. I shouldn't have asked, I guess, if I didn't want to know. Chip grabbed some sheets and tossed them onto the top bunk. I'm a top bunk man. Hope that doesn't bother you. No. Whatever is fine. I see you've decorated the place, he said, gesturing toward the world map. I like it. And then he started naming countries. He spoke in a monotone as if he'd done it 1,000 times before. Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria, American Samoa, Andorra, and so on. He got through the A's before looking up and noticing my incredulous stare. I could do the rest, but it'd probably bore you. Something I learned over the summer. God, you can't imagine how boring New Hope, Alabama is in the summertime. Like watching soybeans grow. Where are you from, by the way? Florida, I said. Never been. That's pretty amazing. The country's thing, I said. Yeah, everybody's got a talent. I can memorize things and you can... Um, I know a lot of people's last words. It was an indulgence learning last words. Other people had chocolate. I had dying declarations. Example, I like Henry I like Henrik Ibsen. I like Henrik Ibsen's. He was a playwright. I knew a lot about Ibsen, but I'd never read any of his plays. I don't like reading plays. I liked reading biographies. Yeah, I know who he was, said Chip. Well, right, well, he'd been sick for a while, and his nurse said to him, You seem to be feeling. You seem to be feeling. You seem to be feeling better this morning. And Ibsen looked at her and said, On the contrary. And then he died. Ibsen laughed. Chip laughed. That's morbid, but I like it. He told me he was in his third year at Culver Creek. He started in ninth grade, the first year at the school, and was now a junior like me. A scholarship kid, he said. Got a full ride. He heard it was the best school in Alabama, so he wrote his application essay about how he wanted to go to a school where he could read long books. The problem, he said in the essay, was that his dad would always hit him with the books in his house, so Chip kept his books short and paperback for his own safety. His parents got divorced his sophomore year. He liked the creek, as he called it, but you have to be careful here with students and with teachers. But I do hate being careful. Let me read that again. His parents got divorced his sophomore year. He liked the creek, as he called it, but you have to be careful here with students and the teachers. With students and with teachers. And I do hate being careful, he smirked. I hated being careful too, or wanted to at least. He told me this while ripping through his duffel bag, throwing clothes into drawers with reckless abandon. Chip did not believe in having a sock drawer or a t-shirt drawer. He believed that all drawers were created equal. And yeah, Chip did not believe in having a sock drawer or a t-shirt drawer. He believed that all drawers were created equal and filled each with whatever fit. My mother would have died. As soon as he finished unpacking, Chip hit me roughly on the shoulder and said, I hope you're stronger than you look, and walked out the door, leaving it open behind him. He picked his head back in a few seconds. He picked his head back in a few seconds. Yeah, he peeked his head back in a few seconds later and saw me standing still. Well, come on, Miles to go halter. We got shit to do. We made our way to the TV room, which, according to Chip, contained the only cable TV on campus. Over the summer, it served as a storage unit, packed nearly to the ceiling with couches, fridges, and rolled-up carpets. The TV room undulated. The TV room undulated with kids trying to find and haul away their stuff. Chip said hello to a few people, but didn't introduce me. As he wandered through the couch-stocked maze, I stood near the room's entrance, trying my best not to block pairs of roommates as they maneuvered furniture through the narrow front door. Let me just take a swig of water. Yeah. Yeah, I stood near I stood near the room's entrance, trying my best not to block pairs of roommates as they maneuvered furniture through the narrow front door. It took 10 minutes for Chip to find his stuff, and an hour more for us to make 4 trips back and forth across the dorm circle between the TV room and room 43. By the end, I wanted to crawl into Chip's mini fridge and sleep for 1,000 years. But Chip seemed immune to both fatigue and a heat stroke. I sat down on his couch. I found it lying on a curb in my neighborhood a couple of years ago. He said of the couch as he worked on setting up my place. He said of the couch as he worked on setting up my PlayStation 2 on top of his footlocker. I know the leather's got some cracks, but come on. It's a damn nice couch. The leather had a few more cracks. Yeah, the leather had more than a few cracks. It was about 30% baby blue faux leather and 70% foam. But it felt damn good to me anyway. All right, he said. We're about done. He walked over to his desk and pulled a roll of duct tape from the drawer. We just need your trunk. I got up, pulled the trunk out from under the bed, and Chips situated it between the couch and the PlayStation 2. Sorry, I am a little tired. Sorry, I was just reading ahead. Yeah, I got up, pulled the trunk out from under the bed, and Chip situated it between the couch and the PlayStation 2, and started tearing off thin strips of duct tape. He applied them to the trunk so they spelled out coffee table. There, he said. He sat down and put his feet up on the coffee table. Done. I sat down next to him and he looked over at me and suddenly said, "Listen, I'm not going to be your entree." Yeah, listen, I'm not going to be your entree to Culver Creek social life. Okay, I said, but I could hear the words catch my throat. I'd just carried this guy's couch beneath a white hot sun, and now he didn't like me. Basically, you've got 2 groups here, he explained, speaking with increasing urgency. You've got the regular boarders like me, and then you've got the weekday warriors. They board here, but they're all rich kids. But they're all rich kids who live in Birmingham and go home to their parents' air-conditioned mansions every weekend. Those are the cool kids. I don't like them, and they don't like me. And so if you came here thinking that you were hot shit at public school, so you'll be hot shit here, you'd best not be seen with me. You did go to public school, didn't you? I said, absent-mindedly. I began picking at the cracks of the couch's leather, digging my fingers into the foamy whiteness. Right, you did, probably, because if you had gone to a private school, your freaking shorts would fit. He laughed. I wore my shorts just below my hips, which I thought was cool. Finally, I said, Yeah, I went to public school, but I wasn't hot shit there, Chip. I was regular shit. Huh, that's good. And don't call me Chip. Call me the Colonel. I stifled a laugh. The Colonel? Yeah, the Colonel. And we'll call you. Pudge. Huh? Pudge, the Colonel said. Because you're skinny. It's called irony, Pudge. Heard of it? Now, let's go get some cigarettes and start this year right. And start this year off right. He walked out. He walked out of the room again, just assuming I'd follow. And this time I did. Mercifully, the sun was descending toward the horizon. We walked 5 doors down to room 48. A dry erase board was taped to the door using duct tape. In blue marker, it read, "Alaska has a single." The Colonel explained to me that the Colonel explained to me that one, this was Alaska's room, and two, she had a single room because the girl who was supposed to be her roommate got kicked out at the end of last year, and that three, Alaska has cigarettes. Although the Colonel neglected to ask whether 4 I smoked, which 5 I didn't. He knocked once, loudly. Through the door, a voice screamed, "Oh my God, come in, you short little man, because I have the best story." We walked in. I turned to close the door behind me, and the Colonel shook his head and said, "After 7, you have to leave the door open if you're in a girl's room." But I barely heard him because the hottest girl in all of human history was standing before me in cut-off jeans and a peach tank top. And she was talking over the Colonel, talking loud and fast. "So the first day of summer, I am in old Grand Vine Station with this boy named Justin. And we're at his house watching TV on the couch. And mind you, I'm already dating Jake. Actually, I'm still dating him, miraculously enough. But Justin is a friend of mine from when I was a kid, so we're watching TV and literally chatting about the SATs or something. And Justin pulls his arm around me, and I think, oh, that's nice. We've been friends for so long, and this is totally comfortable. And we're just chatting, and then I'm in the middle of a sentence about analogies or something, and like a hawk, he reaches down and he honks my boob. Honk. A much too firm 2 to 3 second honk. And the first thing I thought was, okay, how do I extricate this claw from my boob before it leaves permanent marks? And second thing I thought was, God, I can't wait to tell Takumi and the Colonel. The Colonel laughed. I stared, stunned partly by the force of the voice emanating from the petite but God curvy girl, and partly by the gigantic stacks of books that lined her walls. Her library filled her bookshelves and then overflowed into waist-high stacks of books everywhere, piled haphazardly against the walls. If just one of them moved, I thought, the domino effect could engulf the 3 of us and asphyxiate into. If just one of them moved, I thought, the domino effect could engulf the 3 of us in an asphyxiating mass of literature. "Who's the guy that's not laughing at my very funny story?" she asked. "Oh, right, Alaska. This is Pudge. Pudge memorizes people's last words. Pudge, this is Alaska. She got her boob honked over the summer." She walked over to me with her hand extended, then made a quick move downward at the last second and pulled my shorts. "Those are the biggest shorts in the state of Alabama." "I like them baggy," I said, embarrassed, and pulled them up. They had been cool back home in Florida. So far in our relationship, Pudge, I've seen your chicken legs entirely too often. Damn, that's so mean. Oh man. Okay. Yeah, so far in a relationship, Pudge, I've seen your chicken legs entirely too often. He'll never recover from this. Never. The Colonel deadpanned. So, Alaska, sell us some cigarettes. And then somehow the Colonel talked me into paying $5 for a pack of Marlboro Lights. I had no intention of ever smoking. He asked Alaska to join us, but she said, I have to find Takumi and tell him about the honk. She turned to me and asked, have you seen him? I had no idea whether I'd seen Takumi, since I had no idea who he was. I just shook my head. All right, meet you at the lake in a few minutes then. The Colonel added. The Colonel nodded. At the edge of the lake, just before the sandy... at the edge of the lake, just before the sandy, and the Colonel told me, fake beach. We sat down in an Adirondack swing. Am I saying that right? I wonder if I'm saying that right. Phone. There you are, my phone. Adirondack. No, not Iran. No, not Iran. Adirondack? I think that's how it's pronounced. Yeah, we sat down in an Adirondack swing. I made the obligatory joke. Don't grab my boob. The Colonel gave me an obligatory laugh and then asked, "Want to smoke?" I had never smoked a cigarette, but when in Rome, is it safe here? Not really, he said. Then lit a cigarette and handed it to me. I inhaled, coughed, wheezed, gasped for breath, coughed again, considered vomiting, grabbed the swing bench, head spinning, and threw the cigarette on the ground and stomped it. Convinced my great perhaps did not involve cigarettes. Smoke much? He laughed, then pointed to a white speck across the lake and said, "See that?" "Yeah," I said. "What is that, a bird?" It's the swan," he said. "Wow, a school with a swan. Wow." "That swan is the spawn of Satan. Never get closer to it than we are now." "Why?" "It has some issues with people. It was abused or something. It'll rip you to pieces. The eagle put it there to keep us from walking around the lake to smoke." "The eagle?" "Mr. Starnes, codename the Eagle, the dean of students. Most of the teachers live on campus, and they'll all bust you. But only the Eagle lives in the dorm circle, and he sees all. He can smell a cigarette from like 5 miles. "Isn't his house back there?" I asked, pointing to it. I could see the house pretty clearly despite the darkness, so it followed he could probably see us. "Yeah, but he doesn't really go into blitzkrieg mode until classes start." Chip said nonchalantly. God, if I get in trouble, my parents will kill me, he said. I suspect you're exaggerating. I suspect you're exaggerating. But look, you're going to get in trouble. 99% of the time, your parents never have to know, though. The school doesn't want your parents to think you became a fuck up here, any more than you want your parents to think you're a fuck up. He blew a thin stream of smoke forcefully toward the lake. I had to admit, he looked cool doing it. Taller, somehow. Anyway, when you get in trouble, just don't tell on anyone. I mean, I hate the rich knots here with a fervent passion. I usually reserve I hate the rich knots here with a fervent passion I usually reserve only for dental work and my father. But that doesn't mean I would rat them out. Pretty much the only important thing is never rat. Okay, I said, although I wondered, if someone punches me in the face, I'm supposed to insist that I ran into a door? It seemed a little stupid. How do you deal with bullies and assholes if you can't get them into trouble? I didn't ask Chip, though. All right, Pudge. We have reached the point in the evening where I'm obliged to go and find my girlfriend. So, give me a few of the cigarettes you'll never smoke anyway, and I'll see you later. I decided to hang out on the swing for a while, half because of the heat. Half because the heat had finally dissipated into a pleasant, if muggy, 80-something and a half. And half because I thought Alaska might show up. But almost as soon as the colonel left, the bugs encroached. No seums, which, for the record, you can see. And mosquitoes hovered around me mosquitoes hovered around me in such numbers that the tiny noise of their rubbing wings sounded cacophonous. And then I decided to smoke. Now, I did think the smoke will drive the bugs away, and to some degree, it did. Hold on, I'm just gonna. Okay. Okay, that's a good place to do that. Okay, and to some degree, it did. I'd be lying, though, if I claimed I became a smoker to ward off insects. I became a smoker because, 1, I was on an Adirondack swing by myself, and 2, I had cigarettes, and 3, I figured that if everyone else could smoke a cigarette without coughing, I could damn well too. In short, I didn't have a very good reason. So yeah, let's just say that 4, it was the bugs. I made it through 3 entire drags before I felt nauseous and dizzy, and only semi-pleasantly sorry, I was just reading ahead. I made it through 3 entire drags before I felt nauseous and dizzy, and only semi-pleasantly blessed. I got up to leave. As I stood, a voice behind me said, "So, do you really memorize last words?" She ran up beside me and grabbed my shoulder and pushed me back onto the porch swing. "Yeah," I said, and then And then hesitantly I added, "You want to quiz me?" "JFK," she said. "That's obvious," I answered. "Oh, is it now?" she asked. "No, those were his last words. Someone said, 'Mr. President, you can't say Dallas doesn't love you.' And then he said, 'That's obvious.' And then he got shot." She laughed. "God, that's awful. I shouldn't laugh, but I will." And then she laughed again. "Okay, Mr. Famous Last Words boy, I have one for you. Uh, the the three words, famous last words, are actually My Chemical Romance song, and it's a pretty goddamn good song." So that just reminded me of like Gerard Way singing that song and someone saying, "Mr. Famous Last Words boy." That's funny. Uh, okay, Mr. Famous Last Words boy, I have one for you. She reached into her overstuffed backpack and pulled out a book. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, The General and His Labyrinth. Absolutely one of my favorites. It's about Bolivar. I didn't know who Simon Bolivar was, but she didn't give me time to ask. It's a historical novel, so I don't know if this is true, but in the book, do you know what his last words are? No, you don't, because I am about to tell you, Senor Parting Remarks. And then she lit a cigarette and sucked on it hard for so long that I thought the entire thing might burn off in one drag. She exhaled and read to me. He, that's Simon Bolivar, was shaken by the overwhelming revelation that the headlong race between his misfortunes and his dreams was at that moment reaching the finish line. The rest was darkness. Damn it, he sighed. How will I ever get out of this labyrinth? I knew great last words when I heard them, and I made a mental note to get a hold of a biography. Of this Simon Bolivar fellow. Beautiful last words, but I didn't quite understand. So what's the labyrinth? I asked her. And now is as good time as any to say that she was beautiful. In the dark beside me, she smelled of sweat and sunshine and vanilla, and on that thin moon night, I could see little more than her silhouette, except for what she smoked. When the burning cherry of the cigarette washed her face in pale red light. Let me say that again. I feel like I didn't say that right. Yeah, in the dark beside me, she smelled of sweat and sunshine and vanilla, and on that thin moon night, I could see little more than her silhouette except for when she smoked, when the burning cherry of the cigarette washed her face in pale red light. But even in the dark, I could see her eyes, fierce emeralds. She had the kind of eyes that predisposed you to supporting her every endeavor, and not just beautiful, not but hot too, with her breasts straining against her tight tank top, her curved legs swinging back and forth again beneath the swing, flip flops dangling from her electric blue painted toes. It was right then. Between when I asked about the labyrinth and when she answered me, that I realized the importance of curves, of the thousand places where girls' bodies ease from one place to another, from arc of the foot to ankle to calf to hip to waist to breast to neck to ski slope nose to forehead to shoulder to the concave arch of the back of the butt and to the etc. I noticed curves before. I've noticed curves before, of course, but I had never quite apprehended their significance. Her mouth closed. Her mouth close enough to me that I could feel her breath warmer than the air. She said, "That's the mystery, isn't it? Is the labyrinth dying? Is the labyrinth dying or living? Which is he? Which is he trying to escape? The world or the end of it?" I waited for her to keep talking, but after a while it became obvious she wanted an answer. Uh, I don't know, I said finally. "Have you really read all those books in your room?" She laughed. "Oh, God, no. I've read maybe a third of them, but I'm going to read them all. I call it my life's library. Every summer since I was little, I've gone to garage sales and bought all the books that looked interesting. So I always had something to read. But there's so much to do. Cigarettes to smoke, sex to have, swings to swing on. I'll have more time for reading when I'm old and boring." She told me that I reminded her of the Colonel when he came to Culver Creek. They were freshmen together. They were freshmen together, she said. Both scholarship kids, with, as she put it, a shared interest in booze and mischief. The phrase booze and mischief left me worrying I'd stumbled into what my mother referred to as the wrong crowd. But for the wrong crowd, they both seemed awfully smart. As she lit a cigarette off, yeah, as she lit, as she lit a new cigarette off, as she lit a new cigarette off the butt of her previous one. She told me that the Colonel was smart, but hadn't done much living when he got to the creek. I got rid of that problem quickly. She smiled. By November, I'd gotten him his first girlfriend, a perfectly nice, non-weekday warrior named Justice. He dumped her after a month because she was too rich for his poverty-soaked blood. Hold on. Excuse me. Yeah, he dumped her after a month because she was too rich for his poverty-soaked blood, but whatever. We pulled our first prank that year. We filled classroom 4 with a thin layer of marbles. We progressed. We've progressed some since then, of course. She laughed. So Chip became the Colonel, the military-style planner of their pranks, and Alaska was ever Alaska, the larger-than-life creative force behind them. "You're smart like him," she said. Quieter though, and cuter. But I didn't. But I didn't even just say that because I love my boyfriend. "Yeah, you're not bad either," I said, overwhelmed by her compliment. "But I didn't say that because I love my girlfriend. Oh, wait, right. I don't have one." She laughed. "Yeah, don't worry, Pudge. If there's one thing I can get you, it's a girlfriend. Let's make a deal. You'll figure out what the labyrinth is and how to get out of it, and I'll get you laid." "Deal." We shook on it. Later, I walked toward the dorm circle beside Alaska. The cicadas hummed their one-note song. And as they had, just as they had at home in Florida, she turned to me and she turned to me as we made our way through the darkness and said, "When you're walking at night, do you ever get creeped out and even though it's silly and embarrassing, you just want to run home?" It seemed too secret and personal to admit to a virtual stranger, but I told her, "Yeah, totally." For a moment, she was quiet. Then she grabbed my hand, whispering, "Run, run, 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 run," and took off, pulling me behind her. 127 days before. I should probably state before every chapter ending, but it's going flowy. It's not just starting in a new page, so I'm just gonna keep on saying 100 and, whatever days before and whatever days after, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'd like to say that is the end of that chapter. Now we go on to... Maybe I'll say that's the end of that day. Okay, I'll say that instead. So that was the end of that day. On to the next, which is 127 days before. Yeah, 127 days before. Early the next afternoon, I blinked sweat from my eyes as I taped a Van Gogh poster to the back of the door. The Colonel sat on the couch, judging whether the poster was level and fielding my endless questions about Alaska. "What's her story?" She's from Vine Station. You could drive past it without noticing. And from what I understand, you ought to. Her boyfriend's at Vanderbilt on scholarship. Plays bass in some band. Don't know much about her family. So she really likes him? I guess. She hasn't cheated on him, which is a first. And so on. All morning, I'd been unable to care about anything else. Not the Van Gogh poster, and not video games, and not even my class schedule, which the Eagle had brought by that morning. He introduced himself, too. "Welcome to Culver Creek, Mr. Halter. You're given a large measure of freedom here. If you abuse it, you'll regret it. You seem like a nice young man. I'd hate to have to bid you farewell." And then he stared at me in a manner that was either serious or seriously malicious. Alaska calls that the look of doom. Yeah, Alaska calls that the look of doom, the Colonel told me after the Eagle left. "Next time you see that, you're busted." "Okay, Pudge," the Colonel said as I stepped away from the poster. Not entirely level, but close enough. "Enough with the Alaska already. By my count, there are 92 girls at the school, and every last one of them is less crazy than Alaska, who, I might add, already has a boyfriend. I'm going to lunch. It's Burrito Day." He walked out, leaving the door open. Feeling like an over-infatuated idiot, I got up to close the door. The Colonel, already halfway across the dorm circle, turned around. "Christ, are you coming or what?" You can say a lot of bad things about Alabama, but you can't say that Alabamans are a people. But you can't say that Alabamans as a people are unduly afraid of deep fryers. In that first week at the creek, the cafeteria served fried chicken fried steak, and fried okra, which marked my first day foray into the delicacy that is the fried vegetable. I half expected them to fry the iceberg lettuce, but nothing matched the burrito, a dish created by a Marine, the amazingly and understandably obese Culver Creek cook. A deep fried bean burrito. The burrito proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that frying always improves the food. Sitting with the colonel, sitting with the colonel and five guys. I didn't know. I didn't know at a circular table. Yeah, sitting with the colonel and five guys I didn't know at a circular table in the cafeteria that afternoon. I sank my teeth into the crunchy shell of my first burrito and experienced a culinary orgasm. My mom cooked okay, but I immediately wanted to bring Maureen home with me over Thanksgiving. The colonel introduced me as the colonel introduced me as Pudge to the guys at the wobbly wooden table. But I only registered the name Takumi, whom Alaska had mentioned yesterday. A thin Japanese guy who a thin Japanese guy only a few inches taller than the colonel. Takumi, Takumi talked with his mouth full as I chewed slowly, savoring the beanie crunch. God, Takumi said to me, there's nothing like watching a man eat his first burrito. I didn't say much, partly because no one asked me any questions, and partly because I just wanted to eat as much as I could. But Takumi felt no such modesty. He could, and did, eat and chew and swallow while talking. The lunch discussion centered on the girl who was supposed to he was supposed to have been Alaska's roommate. Alaska's roommate, Myra, and her boyfriend Paul, who who had been a weekday warrior. They had gotten kicked out in the last week of the previous school year. I learned for I learned for what the colonel I learned I learned for what the colonel called the trifecta. They were caught committing three of Culver Creek's expellable offenses at once: lying naked bed lying naked in bed together, genital contact being the first offense, already drunk, number two, they were smoking a joint, number three. Uh, let me say that again. Yeah, lying naked in bed together, genital contact being the first offense, number one, being offense number one, already drunk, number two, and they were smoking a joint, number three, when the eagle burst in on them. Rumors had it that someone had ratted them out, and Takuma seemed intent on finding out who. Intent enough, anyway, to shout about it with his mouth jam-packed with burrito. Paul was an asshole, the colonel said. I would have ratted them. I wouldn't have ratted on them. But anyone who shacks up with a Jaguar driving weekday warrior like Paul deserves what she gets. Dude, Takumi, Takumi responded. Your girlfriend. And then he swallowed. And then he swallowed a bite of food. Is a weekday warrior. True. The colonel laughed. But much. I kind of want to do that over again. He was talking about how his girlfriend is also. Well, I don't have to explain it again. But yeah, he was trying to say your girlfriend, but his mouth is full, so. I'll just say it again. Dude. Takumi responded. Your girlfriend, and then he swallowed a bite of food, is a weekday warrior. True, the colonel laughed. Much to my chagrin, that is an much to my chagrin. Yeah, chagrin. That is an incontestable fact. But she is not as big an asshole as Paul. Not quite, Takumi smirked. The colonel laughed again, and I wondered why he wouldn't stand up for his girlfriend. I wouldn't. I wouldn't have cared if my girlfriend was a jaguar driving cyclops with a beard. I'd have been grateful just to have someone to make out with. That evening, when the colonel dropped by room 43 to pick up the cigarettes, he seemed to have forgotten that they were, technically, mine. I didn't really care. I didn't really care when he didn't invite me out with him. In public school, I'd known plenty of people who made it a habit to hate this kind of person or that kind. The geeks hated the preps, etc., and it always seemed like a big waste of time to me. The colonel didn't tell me where he'd spent the afternoon or where he was going to spend the evening, but he closed the door behind them. But he closed the door behind him when he left, so I guess I wasn't welcome. Hold on, let me just adjust myself. Yeah, so I guessed I wasn't welcome. Just as well, I spent the night surfing the web. No porn, I swear. And reading The Final Days, a book about Richard Nixon and Watergate. For dinner, I microwaved a refrigerated burrito the colonel had snuck out of the cafeteria. It reminded me of nights in Florida, except with better food and no air conditioning. Lying in bed and reading felt pleasantly familiar. I decided to heed what I'm sure would have been my mother's advice and to get a good night's sleep before my first day of classes. French 2 started at 8:10, and figuring it couldn't take me more than 8 minutes to put on some clothes and walk to the classrooms, I set my alarm for 8:02. I took a shower and then lay in bed waiting for sleep to save me from the heat. Around 11, I realized that a t- Around 11, I realized that the tiny fan clipped to my bunk might make more of a difference if I took off my shirt, and I finally fell asleep on top of the sheets, wearing just boxers. A decision I found myself regretting some hours later when I awoke to two sweaty, meaty hands shaking the holy hell out of me. I woke up completely and instantly, sitting up straight in the bed, terrified, and I couldn't understand the voices for some reason. Couldn't understand why there were any voices at all. And what the hell time was it anyway? And finally, my head cleared enough to hear, "Come on, kid. Don't make us kick your ass. Just get up." And then from the top bunk, I heard, "Christ, Pudge, just get up." So I got up and saw for the first time three shadowy figures. Two of them grabbed me. One. Oh, wait. Oh, I hate this part. I hate it. I was just like, wait, what are they doing? And I remembered what they did. And it it's never okay. Not okay at all. God, I just remember being for I just remember the scene being so explicit and so terrifying. I hated it. Okay. Two of them grabbed me one with a hand on each of my upper arms, and walked me out of the room. On the way out, the colonel mumbled, "Have a good time. Go easy on him, Kevin." They led me almost at a jog behind my dorm building, then across the soccer field. The ground was grassy, but gravelly too, and I wondered why no one had shown up. And I wondered why no one had shown the common courtesy to tell me to put on shoes, and why was I out there in my underwear, chicken legs exposed to the world? A thousand humiliations crossed my mind. There's the new junior, Miles Halter, handcuffed to the soccer goal wearing only his boxers. God, if only that were the case. I hate this scene. I hate it so much. I imagine them taking me into the woods where we now seemed headed, and beating the shit out of me so I looked great for my first day of school. And the whole time I stared at my feet because I didn't want to look at them and I didn't want to fall. So I watched my steps, trying to avoid the bigger rocks. I felt the fight or flight reflex swell up in me over and over again. But I knew that neither fight nor flight had ever worked for me before. They took me a roundabout way to the fake beach, and I knew what would happen. A good old fashioned dunking in the lake. Oh my God! I wish that was the case too, but no. Yeah, a good old fashioned dunking in the lake, and I calmed down. I could handle that. Oh God, I hate this. I hate it so much. It's just infuriating. It's infuriating. I hate it so much. Oh God, I remember reading this part and being like so furious. I hated it. Okay. When we reached the beach, they told me to put my arms at my sides, and the beefiest guy grabbed 2 rolls of duct tape from the sand. With my arms flat against my sides, uh, like a soldier at attention, they mummified me from my shoulder to my wrists. Then they threw me on the ground. The sand from from the fake beach, cushioning the landing, but I still hit my head. The two of them pulled my legs together, while the other one, Kevin, I figured out, put his angular, strong-jawed face up so close to mine that the gel-soaked spikes of hair pointing out from his forehead poked at my face and told me, "This is for the colonel. You shouldn't hang out with that asshole." They taped my legs together, from ankles to thighs. I looked like a silver mummy. I said, "Guys, please don't." Just before they taped my mouth shut. Oh, fuck, I hate it. I hate it so much. Oh. And just before they taped my mouth shut, then they picked me up and hurled me into the water. Sinking, sinking. But instead of feeling panic or anything else, I realized that "please guys don't" were terrible last words. But then the great miracle of the human species. Our buoyancy, came through, and as I felt myself floating toward the surface, I twisted and turned as best I could, so that I can. And I twisted and turned as best I could, so that the warm night air hit my nose first, and I breathed. I wasn't dead, and wasn't going to die. God, I fucking hate this part. I hate it. I hate everything about this. I hate it. I hate it so much. That is not okay. Oh, God. Jesus. I hate it so much. Well, I thought, that wasn't so bad. Yeah, that wasn't so bad. But there was still the small matter of getting to shore before the sun rose. First, to determine my position vis-a-vis the shoreline. If I tilted my head too much, I felt my whole body I felt my whole body start to roll, and on the long list of unpleasant ways to die, face down and soaking wet boxers is pretty high up there. So instead, I rolled my eyes and craned my neck back, my eyes almost underwater. Oh god, I hate it so much. Wait, and I'm trying to like picture like as I'm reading it, and I'm like trying to picture where he's at right now. Yeah, I felt my whole body start to roll, and on the long list of unpleasant ways to die, face down and soaking wet white boxers is pretty high up there. So instead, I rolled my eyes and craned my neck back, my eyes almost underwater, until I saw that the shore, not 10 feet away, was directly behind my head. I began to swim, an armless silver mermaid, using only my hips to generate motion, until my until my ass until finally my ass scraped against the lake's mucky bottom. I turned then and used my hips and waist to roll 3 times until I came ashore near a ratty green towel. They had left me a towel. How thoughtful. The water seeped. Yeah, the water had seeped under the duct tape and loosened the adhesive's grip on my skin. But the tape was wrapped around me, 3 layers deep in places, which necessitated wiggling like a fish out of water. Finally, it loosened enough for me to slip my left hand up and out against my chest and rip the tape off. I wrapped myself in the sandy towel. I didn't want to go back to my room and see Chip, because I had no idea what Kevin had meant. Maybe if I went back to the room, they'd be waiting for me and they'd get me for real. Maybe I needed to show them. Okay, got your message. He's just my roommate, not my friend. And anyway, I didn't feel terribly friendly toward the colonel. Have a good time, he'd said. Yeah, I thought. I had a ball. So I went to Alaska's room. I didn't know what time it was, but I could see a faint light underneath her door. I knocked softly. Yeah. Yeah? She said, and I came in, wet and sandy and wearing only a towel and soaking boxers. This was not obviously how you want the world's hottest girl to see you, but I figured she could explain to me what had just happened. She put down a book and got out of bed with a sheet wrapped around her shoulders. For a moment, she looked concerned. She looked like the girl I met yesterday. The girl who said I was cute and bubbled over with energy and silliness and intelligence. And then she laughed. Guess you went for a swim, huh? And she said it with such casual malice that I felt that everyone had known. And I wondered why the whole damn school agreed in advance to possibly drown Miles Halter. But Alaska liked the colonel, and in the confusion of the moment, I just looked at her blankly, unsure even of what to ask. Give me a break. Give me a break, she said. Come on, you know what. Yeah, come on, you know what. You know what? There are people with real problems. I've got real problems. Mommy ain't here, so buck up, big guy. I left without saying a word to her and went to my room, slamming the door behind me, waking the colonel and stomping into the bathroom. I got in the shower to wash the algae in the lake off me, but the ridiculous faucet of the shower head failed spectacularly. And how could Alaska and Kevin and those other guys already dislike me? After I finished the shower, I dried off and went into the room to find some clothes. "So," he said, "what took you so long? Get lost on your way home?" "They said it was because of you," I said, and my voice betrayed a hint of annoyance. "They said I shouldn't hang out with you." "What? No, it happens to everybody," the colonel said. It happened to me. It happened to me. They throw you in the lake, you swim out, you walk home." I couldn't just swim out. I said. I said softly, putting on a pair of jean shorts beneath my towel. "They duct taped me. I couldn't even move, really." Wait, he said, and hopped out of his bunk, staring at me through the darkness. "They taped you? How?" And I showed him. I stood like a mummy with my feet together and my hands at my sides and showed him how they'd wrapped me up. And then I plopped down onto the couch. "Christ, you could have drowned. They were just supposed to throw you in the water in your underwear and run," he shouted. "What the hell were they thinking?" "Who was it?" "Kevin Richmond and who else? Do you remember their faces?" "Yeah, I think." "Why the hell would they do that?" he wondered. "Did you do something to them?" I asked. "No, but I'm sure as shit gonna do something to them now. We'll get them." "It wasn't a big deal. I got out fine." "You could have died." "And I could have, I suppose. But I didn't." "Well, maybe I should just go to the Eagle tomorrow and tell him, I said. "Absolutely not," he answered. He walked over to his crumpled shorts lying on the floor and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. He lit two and handed me one. I smoked the whole goddamn thing. "You're not," he continued, "because that's not how shit gets dealt with here. And besides, you really don't want to get a reputation for ratting. But we will deal with those bastards, Pudge. I promise you. They will regret messing with one of my friends." And if the colonel thought that calling me his friend would make me stand by him, well, he was right. "Alaska was kind of mean to me tonight," I said. I leaned over, opened an empty desk drawer, and used it as a makeshift ashtray. "Like I said, she's moody." I went to bed wearing a t-shirt, shorts, and socks, no matter how miserably hot it got. I resolved I would sleep in my clothes every night at the creek, feeling, probably for the first time in my life, the fear and excitement of living in a place where you never know what's going to happen or when. Alright. I could read another bit, but also I could stop here too. I think I'm gonna stop here for today. But man, I just remembered that. I was just like, I got so mad. I was just like, so angry. It is never okay to do that. Okay. But yes, we will see you. Well, I will see you, or you will hear from me in the next recording. Right now, you need to upload all the 13 reasons why stuff. I haven't done that. I was gonna do it yesterday, but I had other things I wanted to do. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying this. And I will see you next time.